Whenever I do theme months like this, I always try to find games outside of the famous highlights of the console, and for the N64, I decided to go with Body Harvest. I'm sure most of you aren't familiar with this game, and for good reason. It wasn't very popular. Created by DMA Designs, the game was intended to be a launch title for the N64, with backing from Nintendo at that. However, due to disputes over the game's content, namely its violence, Nintendo dropped support for the game. DMA would continue development as they looked for a publisher, which they eventually found with Midway. The game would bomb at retail due to a lack of marketing and a less than attractive title, but Body Harvest holds more significance in the industry than I think people realize. Let's see if you guys can guess why by the time I'm finished talking about the game. In Body Harvest, you take the role of Adam Drake, a cybernetically enhanced super soldier from the future who is sent back in time to fend off a race of aliens who come to Earth every 25 years to feed on humanity. It's a pretty basic story, but I get the sense that the team had greater ambitions for it. Each level attempts to inject a bit of lore and culture into the game, but it doesn't work all that well. The effort is appreciated though, and that goes for the presentation too. Body Harvest was one of the first open-world action games, and the size and scale of it all is pretty impressive. Though it doesn't compare to modern open-world games, it's incredible that a game like this exists on the N64 at all. That being said, it's also very clear that the game is overtaxing the console. Though it might not look too bad here since I'm recording off an analog 3D, this game chugs worse than a freight train. It's also covered in a thick layer of N64 fog, and it lacks atmosphere due to a nearly non-existent soundtrack. It's ambitious for sure, but maybe a little too ambitious for the console, not to mention the fact that the game world in general is pretty barren. As for the gameplay, Body Harvest is in essence an open world action game. You are dropped into a large map and have to complete a series of objectives. These range from simply trying to access different parts of the map to helping the locals, but the main thing you need to do is defend the populace from the aliens. Every once in a while, aliens will spawn and attempt to harvest the locals, and every time they succeed, they will get bigger and stronger. Allowing too many people to be harvested will also result in a game over, and that's if you survive that long with all the insane aliens coming after you. Thankfully, Adam is packing some serious heat, and he'll find more powerful weapons out in the game world as well. Adam can also commandeer a variety of vehicles, each with their own strengths and weaknesses. Some vehicles even have built-in weapons, which will really even the odds when you are dealing with bigger enemies. Vehicles are also primarily how you get around the world, so having one on hand as well as gas to run it is always advised. So yeah, it sounds an awful lot like a modern open-world action game, doesn't it? And for the most part, it functions about as well as one, but it does have some shortcomings as a result of being the first of its kind. For starters, the controls are a little clunky. You can't really strafe left and right when you're on foot, and the handling of the vehicles is pretty rough. Some of the objectives can be a little obtuse and at times downright misleading. The thing that got on my nerves the most were the moments when the harvesters would spawn in an area that I couldn't reach, meaning there was nothing I could do to save these people. I also have to be honest folks, I found Body Harvest to be a little dull. The levels are pretty barren, there's a clear lack of music, and the sound effects are unsatisfying. I have a bunch of other games to cover, so I didn't want to spend too much time on this one. I was hoping that this game would be the Dragon Force or Disruptor of the Retrospective, but that just ended up not being the case. It really doesn't surprise me that Body Harvest wasn't terribly popular. Don't get me wrong, it's an ambitious game for sure, but it might have out-ambitioned the console. Games like Mario 64 and Banjo-Kazooie might not feature the same size and scope, but their smaller scopes work better with the limitations of the hardware. It also doesn't help that Midway didn't back the game much, and with that box art and title, it was unlikely anyone would have been eager to give this game a shot. It's another one of those games I can really only recommend to guys like me who are big into the evolution of game design, and Body Harvest had a pretty big impact in that regard. Though it was a retail flop, DMA learned a lot from working on the game, and they would apply the lessons learned for future games, and they would find tremendous success as a result. DMA Designs is still around, though you probably know them by another name, Rockstar Games. Yep, Body Harvest was made by the same studio who would go on to make Grand Theft Auto 3, which would set the standard for what we refer to as the open world sandbox. Grand Theft Auto 3 was to see where Body Harvest failed and would establish the GTA series as one of the most commercially successful franchises ever. I've witnessed the release of several GTA games in my day, and their arrival was always punctuated by people staying home on the release date instead of going to class or going to work. GTA 6 is due out later this year, and people are of course excited. Though admittedly, I'm not one of them. I openly admit to not being the biggest fan of GTA. I just don't like pretending to be a criminal, but I respect the games for what they have done for the industry, and acknowledge the quality. It's strictly a matter of taste. So yeah, I guess you could say that Body Harvest is to GTA what Wolfenstein 3D is to Doom. It may not have stood the test of time and is overshadowed by its successor, but you have to give the game its dues for laying the groundwork. To make a long story short, Body Harvest walked so that GTA could run.